Welcome into the pump fake, everybody. Ahead of the divisional round in the NFL playoffs, Jarrett Bailey here with you as always, joined by my good friend from Sports Illustrated, Matt Verderame. How you doing, buddy?
Good. How are you?
Cold. It is very chilly in Pittsburgh, and I think just on like the eastern side of the United States for the most part, it's chilly. It's very chilly.
Yeah, I believe the high here on Monday is going to be 3.
Yeah, on Tuesday, I assume that weather's coming from your area to mine because we have a high of 2, so it's gonna be a brutal one.
Yeah, it sucks. I'm looking forward to going down to Mobile and New Orleans and not freezing to death for a week. Although can be colder there than people think, but
Yeah,
not 3. So it's a win.
I looked at the weather for Mobile week, and like there's a couple days where it's like 47's the high. All right, well, and in that stadium too, you're gonna get like it's fucking cold in there.
That weather's weird there every year.
Yeah,
It's either frigid compared to what they're normally used to, or it's 70 and everybody's sunburnt to hell. Like there's
yeah,
no in between. So listen, 47 right now sounds like tropical weather compared to what's going on outside.
absolutely. So let's talk about the divisional round. We'll focus mainly on the AFC side. I think that's the more compelling side of this. Anyway, we'll touch a little bit on the NFC, but let's start with your Chiefs playing the Texans. Started off, and I think they still are 8.5-point favorites. I said they're going to win. I think Houston covers just because all year long the Chiefs have played in these nonsense, weird, strange, like fuckery of games where stupid things happen. It's low scoring, but their defense pulls something off. Mahomes will get the ball with 2 minutes left. They'll ice the game. They're gonna win, but I expect it to be closer than 8 points.
Yeah, I'm headed there tomorrow, covered for SI. I'm kind of split on this. On one hand, I completely agree with you. Like this is what they've done all year long, and they will go into this game and they will do everything imaginable to keep it within a score, and they will just feel very comfortable winning 27-20.
Mm.
There's another part of me that says this is the playoffs, and this is typically when this team goes nuclear, and they just decide like, okay, we've saved our best 75 plays, and now you're going to get them. And, we're not going to screw around. Now, if you look at their history in the playoffs, they've covered their last 6 spreads.
Mm.
They have come out. And now, that said, their last 3 wins in the playoffs last year were in overtime, a 7-point win, and a 3-point win over Buffalo.
Mm.
So it's not like they went out and blew these teams out, but they did cover. I think it's around the number. I mean, look, it would shock me if they didn't cover and they won by 7. No. Would it shock me if they won by 11? No. I mean, I think it's right around the number. I think I've seen the over under at like 41.5. I think that's probably close to where it is. I think it's right around that 40 to 45 number. I've thought about this game and the other ones quite a bit this week. I've written about them. I have a hard time finding a way Houston wins this game unless the Chiefs just completely blow it.
I agree.
And it's not I know if a Texan fan hears that, they're going to be, oh, you're not giving them credit. It's not that. It's just they're hurt. They're really banged up. I mean, I'm assuming Mixon's going to play, but he didn't practice today, and he's got an ankle now, and no Dell and no Diggs, and both of the starting safeties are out. And every argument I've seen about this game pro Houston has been, well, those edge rushers. And those guys are awesome. And Andy Reid also knows they're awesome. And they are going to remove them from the game. Like, I guarantee you, their game plan is going to be, those guys are not beating us. And if we lose this game, it's because of Kamari Lassiter and Al Shire and Danico Autry. It is not going to be because of Danielle Hunter and Will Anderson. And that's the problem. It's the same problem I have with Houston on offense. It's like, well, they've got Nico Collins. Yeah, I know. So do the Chiefs. That's the problem. They will put McDuffie on him, and they will roll coverage when McDuffie's not on him. And they will say, look, you are not going to beat us. And if Xavier Hutchinson wants to beat us, and Dalton Schultz wants to do, God bless, beat us. But that's the problem I have with you. I think they're a good team. I think they're well coached. But in the playoffs, you got to have a lot of ways to win. And I think on both sides of the ball, Houston kind of has like one way to win this game.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And the Chiefs are not dumb. They also know Houston is one way to win this game. And I just think that's a tough way to go in Arrowhead when it's going to be 11 degrees and windy. And that's a hard spot to win that game.
Yeah, and I'll say what I told you on your show when I was on it with you last week about Houston. It's that they're in a very similar spot that they were last year because Dell's hurt. They didn't have Diggs anyway last year against Baltimore, and the Ravens just kind of keyed in on that and said, we're not going to let Nico Collins be the guy who beats us. We're going to blitz the hell out of Stroud, make him uncomfortable. With the Chiefs, like we know that their defense is, if not the best in the league, definitely one of the top 3 to 5.
Yep.
And they're going to do everything that they can. Spags is going to throw just a bunch of disguised coverages. He's going to rotate the safeties into some weird thing. Like we know that he's going to do everything to make Stroud uncomfortable. And with them already at a shortage, and I know that I picked the Chargers going into last week, and they very clearly did not win that game, and Houston's defense very much beat them up. This is a different animal, though, and I think that at some point that you just need more guys, and they just don't have them right now.
I also think, look, I also picked the Chargers. I said on my podcast, I thought that was the biggest coin flip of the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
And, if Herbert had told me previously he was going to throw 4 picks, I would have picked Houston. Look, I think 2 things can be true at once. Houston played well in that game defensively. Also in that game, the Chargers were a disaster.
Yeah.
I mean, I remember, tweeting out during that game and also just seeing my entire timeline of people saying this is one of the worst games I've ever watched. It was not a tour de force by Houston for most of that game. Houston was not good offensively.
Mm-hmm.
They had a couple of big plays, but they really did not do much in that game on offense outside of the one drive. To their credit, they went 99 yards. It's an amazing drive, but that was pretty much it until they salted the game way late. That game, to me, with due respect to Houston, was more about the Chargers. And the Chargers having one weapon and Herbert not being on the level of these other quarterbacks in the AFC. Like, my big takeaway from that game was the Chargers need Herbert to level up a couple levels here if they're ever going to beat these teams in the AFC. Houston has a good defense. Houston is a challenging team to play against. I would also say, though, that I think, look, to your point about this being a different animal, this is not Ladd McConkey and guys. Like, this is going to be, hey, look, it's Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown and DeAndre Hopkins and the 2 backs and Mahomes. It's just different. Like, you can put Stingley on one of those dudes, and that's great. He's probably going to race whoever he's on. And there's like 4 more guys.
Mm-hmm.
That's the problem. And I just think, I also think it's a disadvantage to Houston, quite frankly, they played them 3 weeks ago. Because the Chiefs not going to just sit there and look at that tape and be like, all right, say I want to play us. I mean, that's, I went back and watched the all 22 of that game the last couple of days. It is a ton of 4-man rushes on first down. Second down, there's a little bit of a blitz package, but mostly 4-man rush. A lot of man. Zone was more on first down. And then on third down, ton of man with 5- and 6-man pressures. And as the game went on, the Chiefs started to figure out that pattern. They started to move the ball more and more. I think if you're Ryans in this game, you have to take some pretty big gambles to win. It's going to have to be, hey, look, man, we're willing to go for it on 4th and 8 with a fake punt. And we're willing to, on a night like that too, where it's cold, like maybe you don't kick a 50-yard field goal with Fairbairn when it's 4th and 6. Maybe you go from the 32. Like, you're going to have to create some momentum, create some breaks, create an extra possession. Like, if the Chiefs play a B game or better, they're winning. The Texans are going to need to play a great game and have the Chiefs make some errors.
I read the MMQB's staff piece on their picks and whatnot throughout the playoffs. You pick Kansas City to 3-peat. I'm not surprised by that. I kind of expected that to be the pick, and I think that betting against Kansas City at this point would be a fool's error, but one that I'm more than likely going to make and might regret. Do you still feel that way after seeing what the likes of maybe Buffalo did or Baltimore did in the wild card round?
Yeah, they beat Denver and Pittsburgh. Yeah, I'm not. I mean, I do, because the Chiefs have just owned Lamar Jackson in his career.
Yeah,
owned them. They beat him every time they played, except for one time. The one time they lost to him was because Clyde Edwards-Helaire fumbled as they're setting up a game-winning field goal attempt. Like, they beat him all the time.
Mm-hmm.
The Bills, it's kind of a pattern. They lose regular season games to them, and they beat them when it matters.
Right.
And I mean, look, I'm not going to sit here and say they couldn't lose. I pride myself. Anybody who's ever followed me knows I'm a Chiefs fan, but I don't live in delusion. Like, This week, I feel like they'd have to play poorly to lose. I feel like they would have to really just have a bad game to lose.
Sure.
They could play very well next week against either of those teams and lose. I mean, that is absolutely on the board. I think Buffalo is the harder matchup for them. I
agree.
But I'm going to just be honest. If the Chiefs play their best game against either one of those teams are going home. They're better than them.
So let's focus on those two other teams then real quick. Buffalo starts off slow against Denver. I think the Broncos had like a 4-play drive, ended with a play-action bomb to Troy Franklin. Everybody's like, "Oh my goodness, the Broncos!"
Right.
And then they didn't score a point the rest of the game. Some idiot went around on podcasts and radio and TV and said that the Steelers were going to beat the Ravens. I would hate to be that guy right now. Unfortunately, I am that guy. And the Ravens just beat the holy hell out of them. And now rematch of week 4 where Baltimore ran all over Buffalo,
right?
As the Bills just sat in nickel and let it happen.
Yep.
Granted, in that game they were missing several stars. Milano Bernard, Taron Johnson all didn't play in that game, but hopefully they've at least learned, all right, let's not do that again because we've seen how that goes. I'm leaning Buffalo in this game. I won't be surprised by the result either way, but the fact that it's taking place in Buffalo is going to be a lot of snow, a lot of just bad weather. That seems to, in my mind, that favors them. Plus, they haven't lost at home this year. And while the Ravens' run game has been a focal point of discussion, I think the Bills' run game doesn't get as much credit as it deserves because James Cook has had a really tremendous season. And Josh has done a really good job himself with his legs and spreading the ball out. So I think that from a pure matchup standpoint, Buffalo's offense is going to be tougher for Baltimore's defense than Baltimore's offense would be for Buffalo's defense, if that makes sense.
I think this game is a 50-50 game. I picked Baltimore because I think they have the better roster. And I actually would go the other way on one thing, though. I think if it's bad weather, that favors Baltimore. Because if that game turns into a phone booth game, that game's over. Buffalo is not anywhere near as big as Baltimore at the point of attack. That would be the thing. Well, the other thing that scares me is McDermott in this game. Like, is this just one of these things?
I think that's the same thing that scares every Bills fan and every person.
Does he go into this game? You know what? I don't care. We've got the linebackers now. We're going to play nickel.
Yeah.
Because if he does that, they're running for 300 yards. Like, if he sits in nickel in this game and Taron Johnson's the force player against Patrick Ricard, it's over. I mean, I don't think he's out of his mind enough to do that. Now, I will say this. I also made my pick assuming Flowers would be back. If he's not back, which it looks like he may not be, I mean, I'll stand by my pick, but I would say that I think all of a sudden that becomes a lot easier of an offense to defend. So, it's hard, man, because it's one of those games. Look, in transparency, it's a game that I look at and I just say, I could see Allen having one of those days where they win because he's just out of his mind. And that's it. They're going to win if he has a game like that. There's another part of me that looks at this game and says, I could also see this being a game where the Bills do Bills things in January and they make 2 or 3 really dumb mistakes. That includes coaching errors. And the Ravens just don't. And that's it. Like, you go home in games like that. This is not a game. They're not, like even the Denver game, you go, oh man, they beat them 31-7. That game was 13-7 late in the third quarter.
Yeah.
And if Ty Johnson doesn't make a great catch, Denver's got the ball down 6 late in the third quarter. Like, it wasn't like you watched that game where, man, Buffalo just killed them. I mean, it was – now Buffalo pulled away to their credit. I mean, they buried them at the end of the game. But that game was tight for 2.5, 2 3/4 quarter. Like, I wonder with Buffalo in this game, too, defensively. Like, they've been bad a lot of the last 2 months of the year.
Especially on third downs.
They're brutal. Like, the 20th in the league. Like, so it's – That is where I just kind of look at this game. I don't know. I mean, are Lamar and Derrick Henry just enough to just drive them crazy and they're just running all over the field? My feeling on this is, and I got a column coming out tomorrow on it, but whoever loses this game, it's going to be a long off season.
Oh, for sure.
And by that I mean the quarterbacks, because if you're Lamar and you lose this game, I believe you're now 3-5 in the playoffs if you lose this game.
Correct.
And it starts to become one of these things of like, are you ever going to get over the hump?
Are
you ever going to do it? Like, you've been to one AFC title. Like, whoever loses this game has been to one AFC title game in their careers. That's not great, man. Like when you could just, and I don't want to hear any of these people like, well, Josh hasn't had talent around him, or Lamar hasn't had enough around him. That's bullshit. Both those guys have had plenty of talent around them. Okay. And they haven't been able to do it. Baltimore was favored to beat Kansas City last year. So was Buffalo, might I add. And neither one of them could do it. Like at some point, you got to do it. Now, look, if whoever wins, if they end up playing the Chiefs next weekend, and they go into Arrowhead and they play a good game and they just lose because Mahomes just goes God mode. Hey, look, man, you're not going to hear anything out of me. Like, there's a lot of guys who lost to Brady in Foxborough. You're going to penalize them for it? Like, what are you going to do?
As a Steelers fan, I saw Ben Roethlisberger lose to Tom Brady plenty of times. Like
it happens, man. Like he's an all-time great. Like it happens. Now, yes, history still wants you to win a Super Bowl, all that, but like. Sure. It's hard to really just criticize the hell out of whoever goes in there and loses if that's the way this thing shakes. I will say, though, I might be on the other side of this compared to most people. I think there's more pressure on Allen in this game. You're at home. And the last 2 years, you've been at home in this game, and you've lost to Burrow, and you've lost to Mahomes. If you lose this game, you've got the trilogy of the three guys who you are in that group with, and you've lost to all of them. With the game on your racket. Like at some point, you got to win these games. Like, and I've had so many Bills fans say to me, well, he hasn't had a good defense, which is nonsense. He's had defenses over the years that have been top 5 defenses that haven't been able to do it. Well, they haven't had the talent around him. I mean, come on. The guys had Diggs. Beasley was an all-pro the 1 year there. They've always at least had a competent running game and a good offensive line. Like, I just watched Mahomes win a Super Bowl with Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore.
Ugh.
Okay, I don't want to hear it that these guys don't have the talent to go win. Go win. Go do it. I mean, Baltimore, my God, they've had some of these teams in DVOA to tell you they're the best teams of all time. They haven't been able to win. Whoever loses this game, it is going to be a brutal referendum on them, fair or not. And I think to me, they're the two players under the most pressure in the playoffs.
Absolutely, 100%. Yes.
Like if Mahomes loses to Houston, it's a disaster of a loss. But like who cares? Like long term, nobody's going to look back.
No one cares, right?
No one's going to. Montana lost to Wade Wilson in a divisional game once. Okay, Brady lost to Mark Sanchez at home. Nobody cares because those guys won a bunch of rings. Nobody is going to look back on those guys. Oh my God, he lost to Stroud in the playoff. These guys are ringless. They have to win, and that is what's at stake in this game.
No, I think that's a good point that you make about Allen, though, being under more pressure because the last time I checked, they weren't favored in this game, but they're still the home team. And regardless, I think Buffalo, after reading Ty Dunn's piece that he did with Sean McDermott, which I highly recommend everybody go and read because it's really cool that McDermott agreed to do that after everything.
I gotta be honest, I was shocked.
I was very, very surprised that he gave Ty an hour of his time. So I thought that was really cool. But maybe something's different this year. Maybe. But until McDermott proves that something's different, then I don't know. There's going to be that doubt. But at the same time, man, like Harbaugh and the Ravens have had their fair share of playoff hiccups too. Yeah. Where like I can't go into this with complete confidence that they're going to be competent either.
No, I mean Harbaugh and the Ravens. Let's call it what it was. I mean, last year was a pants shitting. I mean, they took 5 personal fouls at home in that game and scored 10 points. That was a disaster. Okay, I mean they lost to Kansas City, fine, but they did not play well in that game. Look, my feeling on the AFC playoffs as a whole, the burden of proof is on Buffalo and Baltimore. It just is. Like the Chiefs have done nothing but win Super Bowls now for half a decade. Like prove to me you can beat them, and then the Chiefs have got to get there. Maybe Baltimore and Buffalo are playing Sunday night, and they're trying to host a game against Houston in the AFC Championship game. That could happen. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it could. But if they got to go to Kansas City, the burden of proof is on those two teams. Okay, because I got to tell you. If that AFC title game is in Arrowhead, the Chiefs are going to walk into that game thinking we're going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't care who they're playing. They're going to walk into that building going, we're going to win this game. And those other two teams are going to have to, whoever it is going to go in there going, we think we can win this game.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if the Chiefs play the Bills, they're not scared of them. Why would they? I'm not saying the Bills are scared of the Chiefs. I'm sure they're not. But I'm just saying the Ravens, I think, might have a little fear of the Chiefs. The Ravens, I think there's more of like, we never beat this team. Ever. Like Buffalo, even though they haven't beaten them in the playoffs, they can at least say, hey,
They
man,
can at least say that like we beat them like once a year.
They could realistically be, hey, man, we should have beat them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And they didn't, but they have that at least in their back hip pocket. I don't care what Lamar and the Ravens say. If they got to go in there is a certain element of like, oh, God, not again. We got to play them again. Like, it's just, they never beat them. They never beat them. And Lamar always has awful games against them. Like, they just can never do anything against them. I think Baltimore would not, scared maybe isn't the right word, but there'd be a little bit of doubt. There'd be some doubt. Like, can we really win this game? Like, I wonder even with Houston this week, is there a little bit of going in there, like when they're getting off the bus going, this is going to be a tough game. I mean, they get off the bus, it's 10 degrees, the wind chill's minus 12, and you're walking in there going, oh God. Like, all right, yeah, man, let's give it a go. Like, the hard thing when you play a team like that, and this is true of when New England was great, you almost are forced to play perfect. And if things start to go a little sideways, it's almost like predestined mentally, like, oh, God, here it comes, Or if you're Buffalo or Baltimore and you're in the AFC title game against them, and Mahomes has the ball with 5 minutes left with a chance to win the game, I don't care what you say to yourself. You're like, yeah, this is probably not going to end well. Yeah. Right? So that being said, I think the Buffalo-Baltimore game is a great game. And I think a lot of this is going to come down to a very obvious thing. Can Buffalo curtail their run game? If they can do that, I think they probably win. And if Baltimore runs all over them, this could be a blowout. I could see Baltimore getting up on them and really taking it to them. But, it's easier said than done. Buffalo's a damn good football team. And I know that Baltimore blew them out earlier in the year, but the Ravens, they did something most teams don't. Most teams do not blow the Bills out. So I expect it to be a one-score game. I expect it to be a very good game.
As do I. Let's touch on the NFC real quick, though. Lions, Commanders. I can see it being a situation where like the Commanders come out like similar to like what Denver did against Buffalo. Like they score early and everybody's like, oh man, the Commanders might really do this thing. But then I think Detroit's going to reel things in and be like, all right, they got Jayden Daniels. Yeah, they've been a great story, but we're 15-2. We're the best team in this conference. Let's just go take care of this shit. I think that they're ultimately going to win. I love the Commanders story. They're a very easy team to root for. Like I said, I think they come out in like the first like quarter and a half and maybe make things interesting. But even with the injuries to the Lions defense, they're still incredibly talented offensively and just a wagon to deal with that I just don't think Washington's going to be able to handle.
Yeah, look, I think I think the big thing in that game is going to be, if you're the Lions, you just cannot let Daniels create with his legs. Like you got to just hem him in. And I'm not saying he can't beat you with his arm. He's been terrific. But they have McLaurin and nobody else. Like you just say, hey, look, man.
You don't believe in Olamide Zaccheaus?
Yeah, right. I mean, you're just like, okay, yeah, him and like Dynamic Brown and Zach Ertz. Yeah, it's like, all right, you fine, beat me. You have to hem him in. The scary thing if you're the Lions is he gets out of the pocket and the play breaks down, and then it's chaos. He's on turf. He's indoors. Like all of a sudden, he's running all over the place. That would be, if I'm the Lions, I literally, if I was Aaron Glenn, I would tell this front four, don't even rush him. I'm serious. I'd be like, just hem him in. Don't let him out of the pocket. And we're going to double McLaurin, beat us.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I didn't say play this game because you're the Lions. You're going to score points. I mean, I'd be shocked if they don't score points in this game. They're going to score their points. But I think, and if you're the Commanders, the key is probably playing really well defensively in the red zone. One of those deals where you're giving up yards, but not a ton of points. And you on the flip side, you've got to maybe, run boot with Daniels, get him moving, get him out of the pocket, create some play. I mean, I think it's a really tall order for Washington. I think it's just probably the end of their road. But Daniels and his legs are the X factor in the game to some extent.
And I mean, even if it is the end of the road, how many people pick the Commanders to go 12-5 and win a playoff game this year? It's been a hell of a season. So,
would you give Washington or Houston better chance to win this weekend?
Oh, probably Washington, just because I've seen the Chiefs do this time and time again. And with Washington, like, I understand that the Lions have had a tremendous season. It's not that I doubt, have any sort of internal doubt about the Lions. I think they're going to win the game. It's just, if I could pick which team I would rather be right now, all right, am I going to go into the house of the 3-time Super Bowl champions who are looking for a three-peat and just routinely run through teams? Or am I going to go to Detroit, which, yeah, it's going to be a tough out, but I think that I would like my odds a little bit better there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I agree. I think that's – I think that for me, it's really about – I think it's more about the fact that, in that game, the weather's not a factor. You're not playing a team that's won a bunch of Super Bowls. You're not like – and look, I think Goff has been tremendous this year, but he's not Mahomes.
Of course.
Houston could walk in there and do everything right, and it just doesn't matter because Mahomes just goes berserk. And it's like, this game's over.
Yeah.
I mean, we're Goff, I don't know that he quite has that level playing.
Of course. I do think, however, it won't be an Eagles-Lions NFC Championship game. I think that I like the Rams this week, even though it's, cross-country travel. They've showed me a lot over, especially like last Monday, where they just eliminated any sort of offensive threat that the Vikings could have had. And Stafford was dealing. They put up a lot of points without really having to rely on Cooper Kupp too much. Kyren Williams has been really great this year, and defensively they really showed up. So I feel like this is another situation for the Eagles where a lot more of the pressure is on them because they're expected to make this deep run. They have the NFL's leading rusher. And for the Rams, it's like, we started off 1-4. We made a hell of a run, won a playoff game, overall successful season. I think the rest is kind of gravy for them. So I'm going to pick the Rams to win outright just because and maybe it's just the Sirianni thing, right? Where I just think at some point this whole thing's just going to, one Jenga block's going to get pulled and it's going to come crashing down.
It's fair. I mean, look, I'm taking the Eagles, but the Rams are the closest I can to picking an upset this week. And I'll preface that also by saying I don't think whoever wins the Ravens-Bills game, I don't care what the line is, it's not an upset. Mm-hmm. Like whoever wins that game's a 50-50 coin.
Sure.
Like I just can't get there with the Commanders or the Texans. I just can't do it. I can't see.
I agree.
Again, unless Detroit or Kansas City has a game where it's like 3 turnovers and 10 penalties and they muff a punt. Which could happen, but I think that's what it would take. Sure. The Rams, to me, the key question on this game is like Barkley when they saw each other. I think it was week 12. He ran for 255 yards.
He did do that.
Can the Rams do anything against him? Or is this just one of these deals where the Eagles are just lining up and running all over them, and it's like, all right, this game
Hurts throws like 11 times throughout the game.
Yeah,
and they
it has like the Garoppolo NFC title game against the Packers, where it throws 8 passes, and it's like, this doesn't matter. Yeah, that's to me the question in this game. Like, if the Rams can get it to where the Eagles just have to drop back and throw the ball, that becomes a much more interesting game. You look at it and go, yeah, man, they still got all those weapons. Yeah, but the Eagles have not thrown the ball well at all this year.
Yeah, Hurts hasn't exactly been great.
He has not been good. And that offensive line is great, but that Rams pass rush is also really good. So that would be the way, to me, like, that's how the Rams win this game. They win this game because they can find a way to curtail Barkley. I'm not saying shut him down, but limit him. And then get him, hey, you know what? Get a couple well-timed sacks, maybe pick off Hurts once, and then offensively, look, the Rams have guys. I mean, the Rams can score points, but it's just, I think that game's going to be really. I think the 2 games on Saturday are games I think are. I don't know if I'd say I think they'll be blowouts, but I think they're going to be comfortable wins for both those teams. Where you're like, yeah, good job by the Commanders, good job by the Texans, but never really like, they really going to win this game. I think the games on Sunday are both going to be games with 5 minutes left. You're like, man, this game's in the balance.
Right. Yeah, and I would probably classify it that same way, where the Saturday games are the lesser of the competitive games as compared to the Sunday games, where it's like, this is, the divisional weekend big games. I see a lot of people calling, what was it? This divisional game, not to go back to Buffalo and Baltimore, but saying that it's the most anticipated divisional round matchup of quarterbacks of all time. And I'm trying to like, who would you put in instead? Because I
there's been a million of these. Like, it's a divisional round. Like, it's the most anticipated divisional round quarterback matchup of all time. I mean, like some people, their memories are like an hour. We've seen this matchup before, by the way.
Yeah.
We've seen Mahomes and Allen in I would argue the best quarterback game I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And by the way, go back and look. People were calling it the Super Bowl before it was played. Okay. Everybody thought like whoever wins this game is going to win the Super Bowl, and then the Bengals ended up going, right? So it shocked everybody. There's been so many games over the years, man. I mean, come on. we've had great I mean, Warren Moon and John Elway and Aikman and Favre and Young and Favre. I mean, you could go on and on and on. Like, there have been so many all-time games. I mean, I'm sure even in recent years, Rodgers, I'm sure he's played a couple of games against big-time quarterbacks in recent years. I'd have to think about it. I'm sure he has. Brady, granted, a lot of the years in the divisional round, it's like, but he played Peyton Manning a couple years in the divisional round. Like, this game, I'll hear it in terms like, hey, they're 1-2 in the MVP rate. That's fine. But it's two guys who are ringless playing against each other in the division, right? It's a great matchup, but it's not like it's like a game where you're like, oh my God, there's 7 rings on the table, and I think it's a bit much. It's a great game. It's a great game, but is it the most anticipated quarterback duel I've ever seen? That seems.
I don't know. According to some lists floating around the internet, it's the matchup between the first and second best quarterback in football, while your boy's rocking number 4. How about that?
It's fantastic. I was so happy to see that. I was like, this is great news. They've been looking for motivation all week long, and there it is. Houston's done a great job. Nobody said anything. No words out of Tim Settle this week.
That's probably
real quiet. Kudos to the Texans. And then the 33rd team was like, here you go. I was like, that's awesome. Thank you. Mahomes.
I believe Jared Goff is like number 3 on that list, if I'm not mistaken. I think Goff was number 3 right in front of him.
Dude, they had a season-long list that Tua was ahead of Mahomes at the end of the year.
I did. I followed along.
Staggering. I was like, what now? Like Tua played like 11 games this year and wasn't even good. And they're like, yeah, Tua. You're like, okay. That's interesting. If your list involves Tua being above Patrick Mahomes in anything,
it's a wrong list. Yes.
Throw your list out.
It's not a good.
That is, I was thrilled. I was, this is great. This is great. I wish he was 8th. It's the only thing. I wish he was 8th. Or somehow even 9th. Like, could he have been behind like Carson Wentz? Would have been awesome. But yeah, I saw that list. I was like, that's good. If I know anything about Mahomes, he's got that printed out on a 16x20 right now. He's got it in his car with him. It's good.
That's lovely. Lovely stuff. All right, buddy. I'll let you get on out of here. I know you're busy. What's the name of that column coming out for SI tomorrow so everybody can find it?
It's just about Allen and Lamar. It is God Almighty. You know what? I couldn't even tell you the title because the editors make it, but it'll be out. You can see it on SI.com. You can see it on the SI Twitter feed, my Twitter feed, the MMQB Twitter feed. But it's just essentially about Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen and what is at stake in this game for these two from a historical standpoint.
I love it. All right, everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to the channel. If you're listening to it as a podcast, leave a review, do all that fun stuff. We'll be back after the divisional round to talk all about it. Matt, you're the best, buddy. Have a good one. Good luck to your Chiefs, and hopefully they'll be playing Buffalo if everything goes well for me.
We'll see. Take care.
All right, y'all. Have a good one. This is the Pump Fake.